Mekach ta'ut, meaning sometimes you make a deal, you make an agreement between two parties, and then one party feels that it was a misunderstanding or wanted to back out the deal. The question is that acceptable? When and where and how? Mekach ta'ut, meaning it was mistaken and it all goes back. And when we said no, you have to go the way it is. The subject we would like to start is the subject of a newly widow that by force of circumstance she needs to sell some of her estate, and here we divide it between selling estate for very basic sustenance, for living, versus when you need to sell estate in order to flip it, profit margin and other things. Keitzad mocheret, page 97, top of the page. There is a book called Beit Shmuel in Siman, in the chapter 93. He explained to us the special circumstance here. They have a widow. She lost her husband recently, and the husband left her relatively small estate. Now she needs to sell some, but how exactly the payment take place? Here we have the interdynamics between the orphans and the widows. Since they are both entitled for the estate, we need to, in one hand, make sure that everyone is somehow compensated, but she needs here a money or sustenance in a daily basis, monthly basis. There is a concern that if she gets married to someone else, then the estate will be totally by the other orphans, by the other members of the family. She will lose the access to that estate. So here we ask a question, Keitzad mocheret, for how many months it's proper for her to sell it in one time? So the Beit Shmuel explained to us, and he said it's obvious that she not selling the estate, or we, meaning the rabbinic court, cannot let. Why we involved, by the way, it's because you have here sometimes issues of conflict between the orphan and the widow. So if we let her sell an estate that compensates her for sustenance for 10 years, she may get married to someone else, and then the orphans feels that they lose something. Also, she will lose her access to that estate. So the orphan, on one hand, feel it's inappropriate, it's not right for her to get the amount that compensates her for 10 years. On the other hand, we don't want her to get to that trouble in a weekly basis, bi-weekly, monthly basis to compensate or to
just to survive.
To survive, yes.
Sorry, just to interrupt, but a question. Just thinking about the estate after a husband has passed, property that she brings, it's some barzel or milog. Does that become part of the estate when the husband dies, or is that separate?
Okay,
the property
so
that she brings.
It depends. Chsetzon barzel, it's her.
Okay, so that remains separate. Milog goes with the estate to the orphans or with the
yes,
children. Yes.
Here the circumstance, basically, I try to make it as simple as possible.
Right.
The Beit Din involved and not involved, which means the Rosh explained to us that if she sell the estate by herself without bet din,
Right.
and then basically the situation is that the orphan come to us and said, look what's going on.
Now, does she, I mean, again, my question, and I understand that was separate about her property that she brought. It was just a question I had. With this property, does she have the control and authority to be able to sell it without the consent of the heirs first?
Yes and no.
Because doesn't the property essentially go to the heirs and she gets to benefit from it to survive, right?
In general, yes.
Okay.
But the issue here is the heir, for example, have other resources of income. For example.
So this is more a situation, I guess, they're presenting it to a Beit Din, where she wants to sell it and the heir says no.
Originally speaking, she sold it by herself.
So she did sell it without
anybody.
Okay, so part of the question then, I guess, is whether she has that authority to sell it or not without the approval of the.
She can sell it, but the question
okay.
is, there is limitation of that sale. Soon you see.
Well, I understand, the limitations, but I just wonder if she has the authority to sell it.
She can sell. Soon you see how. With the ability for her to basically to have the basic support.
Okay.
But if it's part of what belongs to the orphans, they can come in and challenge that sales. For example, as we said earlier, if she wants to sell something that can, I'll go backward. The husband left the estate with a very clear statement that he wants that almost like endowment fund. He wants that to be for her sustenance, to support her after he's gone. He doesn't express any need for flipping estate, profit margin, or doing anything else. He wants that estate to be sold and support her in a daily basis, so she have an income.
Okay.
The orphan said if she sell the estate, the way that she sell the estate now, it will compensate her for 10 years, which open the door, for example, for her to marry to someone else, and then they lose their access or they lose the ability to receive their compensation or their inheritance. Now, if you have bedin mumchim, if you have an expert bedin, that's the Even HaEzer, the tour explained in chapter 93. So they say that if the expert bedin sell, then it's the decision of the way that they make the bedin. They sell it in a way that it will be fair for the orphan as well. But Amar Rabbi Daniel barav Ktina, Amar Rav Huna, מוכרת אחת ל-12 חודש. He said that she sells her late husband's property once every 12 months, and the buyer who purchased the property from her provides her with money once in every 30 days. והלוקח מפרנס אותה אחת ל-30 יום. Which means, according to Rav Huna, it's proper for her to sell the estate in a value of a year, since if she sells less than that, it will not compensate the real value of the estate. The idea is, the buyer divided to 12 months period, so if she will be married to someone else or passed with the year, the orphan will not lose. Why? Because Rashi explained the rest of the money will be paid to the orphan. ורב יהודה אמר, מוכרת ל6 חודשים ולוקח מפרנס אחת ל30 יום. Rav Yehuda hold that she sell the estate in order to have her support for half a year, and one who purchased it paid a monthly basis. So he basically disputed Rav Huna only in a measure of the estate that she can sell. According to him, the minimum is a half a year that can sell in a proper value of the estate. That's the way the Shita Mekubetzet explains. Tanya Kvatei de Rav Huna, מוכרת ל12 חודש. The widows sell from the estate of a husband for again, the estate that compensates the 12 months, ולוקח מפרנס אחת ל-30 יום, and the one who purchased it from her pays one in a 30 days. תניא כבתי דרב יהודה, מוכרת ל6 חודשים, ולוקח מפרנס אחת ל-30 יום. So you see here a matching sources. אמר המימר, הלכתה מוכרת ל6 חודשים, ולוקח מפרנס אחת ל-30 יום. ההלכה היא that she sell from the estate once in a 6 month, and the one who get it from her compensate once in a 30 days. That's basically match the view of Rav Yehuda. Amar le Rav Ashi le Ameimar de Rav Huna Mai. How about the rule of Rav Huna that she sell the estate only once a year? Why he's not holding that way? Amar le lo shmi'a li, klomar lo svira li. He said to him, I did not hear about this statement. Klomar, you see here klomar in the Gemara, which means to say that that I do not hold in accordance with it. So the Shulchan Aruch Even HaEzer 93 said that Halacha follow Ameimar, that she basically sell once in a half a year, but that's, most of the rabbis said that that's applied to estate. But when it's come to a movable object, the two said that she should sell each item separately. It's when I studied it, I was thinking, yes, halacha follow Rabbi Yehuda, that when it's come that way he pays her in a monthly basis, but it's almost like an eBay. You have a lot of items, you put each item separately, you get the most each time, and then you sell another item. Because if you put everything in one time and you put a flat fee for items, sometimes you not get the full compensation of the value of the items. For sure, it depends how you set it up, but that's the idea. The notion is that it should be in a way each and every time. So especially if it's the movable object that belongs or potentially belongs to the orphan, so she cannot sell but only one item each and every time. Now, as we said earlier, she can access to a state that it's free and clear, which means the orphan inheritance from her late husband, and it wasn't sold to anybody else. But if you have any estate that it's already not free and clear, which means that it was subject to pay off the Ketubah, the marriage contract, then באו מיני מרב ששת מוכרת למזונות מהו שתחזור ותטרוף לכתובה. So what happened is, she selling from the estate of her husband for what? For basic sustenance, and then she wants to come back and seize those very property that she had sold, because she said, wait a second, that was basically a mistake. Why? Because it was for the marriage contract. So it's just indirect idea that it's a response from the late Reb Moshe Feinstein, Zecher Tzadik Livracha. So it's a story about 4 guys that are looking for a taxi cab to take them from one location to another. In many places, you see it in New York City, for example, and other places. So imagine they are in, for example, Manhattan, New York. They want to have a ride to Brooklyn. So there are 4 guys, they negotiate with the taxi driver. What happened is, 2 guys said that we just need a ride to Brooklyn and we don't need a ride back, and the other 2 need a ride back and forth. So the guy said, all right, I don't care how many and what, the deal is, I'm charging for all this deal $400 to take it from Manhattan to Brooklyn, to wait, to drop you whatever you need, and to take you back. Fine. So each of them chip in $100, and the end. Now he dropped the 2 guys in Brooklyn, and guess what happened? The other 2 guys, 2 strangers come in, and they want to hire him to ride together with the other two guys back to Manhattan. So what happened is, the first two guys that's standing there, he said, wait a second, we paid you for our ticket, right, to go back. So you basically already paid. This is our friends, you shouldn't charge them, right? And he said, you are not controlling my business, right? This is my taxi cab. You told me to drop you, I drop you here. Goodbye, and what I'm doing next is my business.
Mm-hmm.
So, who is right? So, Moshe Feinstein said that the driver is right. Why? There is a concept in Gemara, it's called Yeush. Yeush, we'll study it in Mitzvah Baba Metzia, which means if you gave up hope on something, you lost an item, you lost an article, and you gave up hope on that article. So basically, there's depend on the circumstance, but in a very general term, if you gave up hope and someone else found it, it's basically his estate, his movable article. Why? Because you already made up your mind that you gave up hope on that article. Since these two guys insisted...
Plus possession is...
What?
Plus just having it in possession with a movable object, he can claim it's his.
Right. But
So-
no. But the thing
But
is,
by you.
Yeah.
sometimes you
But
need
even
to declare, to publicize the law so people can get back. But here, since the situation is that they already declare, so it's a different story. The whole idea is, here you enter a different sensitive subject. If these two guys hear that, right, so they can get angry and they said, you know what, we're going back with you. You want to charge our two friends, so guess what? So we're going back with you.
And then pay another
Can
cab
he-
to take him back to Brooklyn afterwards.
Can he recharge them, or
Right, I understand,
right,
yeah, yeah.
or he have to take them back?
Yeah.
Because there is a concept in Halakha, it's called Yeush. If you gave up on something and you declare that you gave up something, you honor less of that, like we're doing in Chametz in Pesach, etc.
Yeah.
Then it's no longer yours. Anyway, it's a response of Rav Feinstein. So they said here, כי מבעלו בד רב יוסף. דאמר רב יוסף, ארמלתא דזבין אחריות היתמי. When you have a widow that sold from the estate of the orphan for the basic sustenance or to pay off her Ketuba contract, and she took the responsibility for the purchaser, which means if it turns that estate was stolen, or if the previous owner will take it, she needs to pay the compensation of that. Acharayut ayatmei. The responsibility goes back to the orphan, since they have to pay for that Ketubah and that sustenance. They have the responsibility to all the other payment that was made to pay off those debt. Ubet dina dezabin acharayut ayatmei. The same applies when you have the rabbinic court that sold an estate of the orphan in order to pay off the widow and her daughters. So the responsibility, the guarantee of that estate applies on this orphan. So what's the rules if the widow wants to collect her marriage contract from those buyers, from the same estate that she was already sold to them? You know, it happens sometimes. Someone sells something and then they feel that it was a mistake. For example, if you take even a teenager, that they're not already with self-esteem, right? They can sell something and then they cry, they backed out, they made the mistakes, right? So, kevan da'acharayut ayat mei, since the guarantee, the responsibility applies to the orphan, so guess what? Tarfa, that's follow Rav Yosef. So she can go back to the same estate, and those buyer need to go back to the orphan, that they're responsible for that sale. Again, Rashi here is a little inscrutable, because the question is, if the husband did not left any other estates, is a real problem. But if it's the other estate that left, the orphan can pay it off from the other estates that left. Anyway, or Dilma, or you may say, Matze Amrele, the buyer can say to the widow, Nehi de acharayut de alma, lo kabilat ilavach, even you didn't accept upon yourself the responsibility of everyone else, which means that if other people will collect this estate, you do not need to pay us. Acharayut de nafshach, milo kabuleit kabilat, but responsibility guarantee for yourself that you do not collect this estate for the money you own, meaning when you sold it to me, you said clearly that it's mine, right? So now you're coming back and you said, okay, it's not. So you did not accept a guarantee on your own actions that you as the seller will not return and seize the property from us. Amar lehu tenitua. Rav Asher responds, here I bring you a brighter that proves the answer. You have here a widow, mocheret veholechet ad kdei kedubata. She can sell from the estate of the husband to support her sustenance need until there is no estate left for the heir that compensate her marriage contract. But if you leave for her an estate, she can collect that Ketubah, ve'semech la, the estate that left by the heir is considered semech shetigbe Ketubata min hashar, that this is a semech. What is the translation in your English?
Semech, they say, well, let's see, and the remaining land shall be a surety for us. I guess it's an assurance.
Assurance.
An assurance,
which means,
yeah.
okay, that will be assurance that when she collect the Ketubah from that estate, she will not sell the entire estate for the sustenance. She leaves the money in the value of Ketubah in order to collect the Ketubah value. And that basically, according to Ritva and others, it's a good advice. The rabbi said that when she sells estate in order to pay off the Ketubah contract, she receive all the money immediately. And what she sell for the sustenance, she receive it in a monthly payment. So the idea is, it's like, I give you an example. You have a property. You have a property, you need cash. So it's one way, you can say, okay, let me go to a bank and ask for credit line for that estate. And the bank is giving me money. Or the other school of thought, which makes more sense. You keep the estate. You go and apply, for example, to change the zoning from whatever, 3 houses to 20 houses, right? And then you go to a builder and you said to the builder, build on your expense these 20 units, and then we split half and a half. You take 10 units and that compensates the expense plus profit, and we will keep the other 10. So what happened here, for example? The builder will get the 10 units, he can sell each unit at least for $250, for example. So and if his expense is 1, so he left with 1.5. We that left with another 10, if it's $250 each, you have now $250 for each townhouse, for example. So it happens here, you didn't get rid of the estate. Versus if you sell it in one time, you get 1, for example. So you are overall with the chicken, you don't have the eggs anymore. Here you have 250 for each estate. So you have basically, you improve the estates, you have 10 units for 250 each. Whenever you need cash, you can either rent or you sell 1 unit, 2 units, 3 units. But you have many eggs, you don't get rid of all your estate. So here in the same way, the Maharsha also explained, based on the Tosfot we studied, that it's a manner of compensation that goes in a monthly basis, so that basically gives the ability to have the sustenance need without getting rid of the chicken itself. Shmamina, we derive from the Braita, Shaira in, lo Shaira, lo. If she left, if there is a estate, she collected the value of the estates from her Ketubah, for the value of her Ketubah. So then she can collect from that different estates, that's fine. But if is no other properties that she can exercise her payment for the Ketubah, therefore she sold everything for the purpose of sustenance, so that's a problem, because she cannot go back and collect the estate that already sold from the buyer. So the Gemara said, "V'dilma eitza tova kamashmelan." You may say that just give her a good counsel, which means that it's better for her to keep the estate from that orphan, so she can collect the ketubah and not to sell it for sustenance. And then she can do a resale again, which means you can use the estate twice. The lo likrula hadranita. So she will not get a name called retractor. So the idea, especially in those days, the reputation of a person was crucial. And if she gets a reputation like that, people will think twice, and she have a problem to get remarried. They think of her as a person who's have this type of trait. אם כן, ליתני גובה כתובתה מן השאר, מה יסמך לה? So, let's say that she can collect a Ketubah contract, the value from other estate. What does that mean when you use the term semech la? She have a support. Shma mina shaira, in lo shaira lo. If she not left another estate, so she cannot collect from Meshuabadim, from those estates already sold, because this buyer make a clear statement that he buy it with that condition, so she cannot recollect from that. Tosfot said, you have here nafkamina in the Ketubah, which means that if it's a Ketubah, so she get all the money right away. But if it's for sustenance, then it's different story. It's a half a year the minimum, and each and every month she get. Now, if she sold and then she's getting married, so she can collect only from the estate, not from any metaltalin, not from any movable object. So, by the way, since we talk about widow that sold estate from the husband, late husband, and then she wants to have it again, now we go the whole subject of Mekach Ta'ut, the Pnei Yoshua and Afla'ah, have a big discussion why you bring the sugya here. In very general, it's just since we talk about people who want to claim over a state, like in her case, that something wrong with the sale, how far you go with repossession or get repayment of something that's already done. Ibaya le'u zabin velo yitzrichu lezuzei. Someone sold something, for example, you're selling an apartment you own in Florida, and you basically selling it in order to buy another apartment, or you need the money to buy another merchandise. So the problem is, it's called Gilui Dat. Tosfot explained to us that sometimes a person make a very clear retroactive statement. What does that mean? Let me show you an example. We studied the other day the story of the Shabtai Tzvi. It was a false Messiah that during the 16th century, it was a great persecution. So it was a fellow that have this type of feeling that he knows the future, etc., and he is a good agent that promulgated him, and it was a lot of gullible people that followed him. People sold their businesses, sold their homes, and they want to follow this guy, go to Israel, building the third temple, etc. And he has a great influence in the Jewish world. Fortunately, by the Turkish ruler, etc., eventually he was bought to Turkey and he ends up converting to Islam. But the point is, it was a huge disappointment in the Jewish world. Now imagine, hypothetically speaking, but you get the point, if someone thought with the false pretenses that he was told that the Messiah is coming and he saw this something. Can he comes back and he says, it was all false rumors, I made a total mistakes, I apologize, I want it back, I want to retract the sale. So it's big question. Tosfot said in page 47b that in one hand, in every business you have some type of risk. But the question is how far you go. If a person goes around and says, I'm moving to Israel, I'm making aliyah, I'm going there, forget it, I'm going there. Now doing the sale, he didn't say a word. So we have a famous Gemara in Kiddushin, page 50. Over there the Gemara said that if something is dvarim shebalev, if it's in your heart, it doesn't mean anything, right? So you have a reputation, he is giving a word that he's going to make aliyah. Does that mean if tomorrow, after the sale, he says, no, forget it, I'm not making aliyah, can he have that back? Or for example, soon you see example of sudden poverty, sudden situation that they have a great need for food, and people sold their homes and everything to have food. And then it turns that it was a false information that went to the market. Mm-hmm. And actually, for example, it was a delay of a boat that's supposed to transmit some food, etc. So people want to retract the sale. So how far you go when you say that that was a mekach ta'ud, that was a false sales? So velo yitztrichu zeh. He needs the cash, so he sold something. And then he realized that he doesn't need the cash. Or how many times you people, you sell something and then you're stuck and you don't know what to do, you have a plan to buy something else and it didn't come through, right? Hadrei zevine, you tell me that it's off, or dilma, or lo hadrei zvine, or you said no. Tashma da'u gavra de zabin ar'a le Rav Papa. It was a fellow that sold to Rav Papa an estate. V'yistrichu lizuze lemizban torei. He needs cash to buy an oxus. L'sof lo yistrichu le. Suddenly he has some money from other sources and doesn't need it. V'adrenim yaleh le Rav Papa le'arei. So he went back to Rav Papa gave him back the estate. So they said, no, Rav Papa lifnim mishurat dinu de'avar. Rav Papa was a tzaddik, was a righteous man, so he let him have it back. But if a person wants to go strict with that, and Tashma da'u batzot da'ava benahardea, was a great city in Babylon of learning called Nahardea. And all of a sudden, it was a sudden famine. So guess what? People need a very basic food, so they have no choice, but they zabinhu kule alma le'apadniu. People sold the mansion, the homes, the everything, to have a very basic wheat, barley, a very basic food. Lesof atu chite. Boom. They get it from a different city, and everything turned around the other way. So it was a crazy sudden jump in the market. So אמר Rav Nachman, דינהו דהדרי הפנה למראיו. He ruled, he was the head of the Beit Din, that those estates should go back to the owner. Why? Because it's clear that these people didn't want to sell this estate. They sold it because of the pressing circumstance. Hatamname is vinei betaut avu. The Gemara rejected, said you cannot prove it. Why? Digalemilta de arba beikula have kaima. So they said here it became known that the ship with the wheat was already in the bays of the river at the time when the mansions were sold. So if they know that the ship was so close, they will not have sold their property.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, it was those rivers that overflowed, and therefore that big boat had to go to circumnavigate the area that they're supposed to go in a regular way. And right away you have rumors that they're not going to have it. And because it takes so much time to go around, right? Therefore, the guy said, look, if I knew that this boat is about to come, it maybe take another couple of days, I'll never sell it. So that's called ta'ud b'shikul hadat. So here you see a difference between mekach ta'ud, something that is totally in false pretenses, to something that it's not. Here Rabbi Akiva Eiger have a big malach over that, how far you go with this type of situation that people sell something and they backed out of the sales. In general, we mentioned many times that when it's come to transactions, it has to be in a full agreement and understanding of both parties, because if you sell something just because you get the wrong information, somebody fool you. You call a broker and he tells you that the house is worth so and so. You didn't check the market, you didn't check the values, you didn't check anything. And you just take his word, and then it turns that it was totally lies and is far away from reality, right? So it's an example. Or if somebody knocks your door and he just forcefully convinces you to sell, you don't want to sell, but he kept raising the price to force you to sell. So you sold not because you want to sell, you sold it because you basically put under certain pressure. It's a big discussion halakha if that's an effect. Most of the rabbis hold that it's not. היינו דאמר לרמי בר שמואל לרב נחמן, אם כן נמצאת המכשילן לעתיד לבוא. Guess what? People in the future will not bother to sell a estate. Why? Because they're afraid that this guy will change his mind for all kind of ideas, all kind of claim. אמר לי, עטו כל יום תבצעות השכיחה. The door is so frequent that happen every day. אמר לי, רמי בר שמואל responded, אין, yes. בצעות הבן אדם נשכח שכיחה. Unfortunately, this famine, though, is frequent occurred in a harda. והילכתה זבין. The halakha is if you sell a estate because you need cash, לא יצטרכו לזה, זה אדרי זבני. So in general, the rabbi is divided in three different categories, how you define. So one, if it's have a very clear intent from the seller, it's called umdena muchachat, which means he doesn't need to specify clearly before the sale. Another option is it's not clear so much from the action itself. And a third is if, for example, a person sell all of his clothing in order to make aliyah. So he needs to make it very clear. Otherwise, you don't go what person feel in his heart. You have to go by the physical actions. A person should take it to his account that those situations may occur. Now we go to the Mishnah. Mishnah said that if you have a debt collector that need to collect the debt from a state that was lien to that debt, he should not sell the estate to pay off, but only using the Bet Din, the rabbinic court. So here is the Mishnah dealing with a widow selling estate of her husband for the purpose of collecting the Ketubah, the marriage contract or sustenance, but not toward the avenue of the Bet Din. So basically the Mishnah dealing with the sale itself, not the action that she needs to go and take an oath in a Bet Din, or to take an oath to the orphans that her husband never paid her off for her Ketubah, right? אלמנה בין מן האירוסין בין מן הנישואים מוכרת שלא בבית דין. A widow, regardless if at the time of the betrothal, the time of marriage, she collects for her sustenance from the estate of the late husband, even without using the rabbinic court, which means she needs to sell at the front of 3 trustworthy people, but she doesn't need, meaning 3 people that can value those estates, and make sure the Rif said that she's not selling it below than the market value. But those 3 can be trustworthy people. They don't need to be ordained rabbinic judges. רבי שמעון אומר, מן הנישואין מוכרת, שלא בבית דין, מן האירוסין לא תמכור על הבית דין. Here we have to differentiate between marriage and betrothal. Rabbi Shimon said if she widow after she got married, she can do it independently. But if she's only engaged, if she betrothed to someone, so then she needs to go by the avenue of the Bet Din. The notion is that he agreed with the previous view that you can't expect her to sit home and wait for the court case and to get the payment, etc. So you can sell it right away. But if it's from the engagement, it's a different story. Because the widow from the betrothed, she have no right, she have no access for sustenance. So anyone that it's only the one who needs for the sustenance goes. Otherwise, if you have other claim, you have to go by the court system. So what we learn in Mishnah, that according to the first Tana, widows, regardless if it's from the betrothed for marriage, she allowed to sell estate of her husband without the Bet Din. Bishlama mina nisuin. I understand that the widow from marriage may sell what she have, not in the rabbinic court. Why? Because she needs a food. She needs a immediate concern. So you can't wait. So she can sell without going to the rabbinic court's consent. 97b. Ela mina erusin mai ta'ama. But if the reason that the widow, from the time that she's just betrothed, she sell the property out of the court, what's the reason? What's the difference between other creditors that need to sell the estate, those estate that have a lien? Amar ula mishum china. Again, in order to make sure that people will not, we said it several times, desirability, that people not say bad things about her. We learn, if you remember on page 86, that in general statement, the Talmud holds that woman wants to get married more than men. So therefore, when it's involved to a court sessions and running to court, it creates for some women a great emotional stress, and they're more sensitive to that. So if she knows that collecting of her Ketubah contract involved with her appearance in the court, women, the words will come and women start thinking twice before they get married, and because the nature is different. So we try to ease the process. There is a concept, at least in the rabbinic world, fear of the court, of anxiety to go before the court, of the reputation if you go to court, etc. רבי יוחנן אמר, לפי שאין אדם רוצה שתתבזה אשתו בבית דין. The reason that we exempt her from going before the court is because a person doesn't want his wife to be degraded or belittled by having to go before these rabbis in the court. And usually the case is, no offense, but standing there crying, talking about the husband and what he left, what he didn't leave, and what happened. It can be a big emotional to-do. It costs the person sometimes trauma or even, God forbid, emotional background, mental or something like that, right? Background, breakdown, right? Breakdown,
right. Mental anguish.
So if she reached that point, if she needs to go to sell in front of Bedin, they said, look at this. She was betrothed to someone that she go and she court, and she just betrothed to someone and she ran to court to collect the Ketubah from this guy. So it's very bad name, right? So the Beit HaLevi explained that the late husband agree upon that should go without the court session. You see it even nowadays, a lot of family issues or court issues that involve with a husband and wife. What is called that court? I forget. Husband
like
wife.
Family court?
Family court.
Yeah.
They have a lot of sessions that they do it out of the court session, for example, at the lawyer's office, or the counsel office, or the social worker office, etc., etc., especially when it's involved with children or involved with other emotional concerns that applies to parties. It's not always the requirement to appear before the judge. My benai, what's the difference? What's the difference between the reason of Ula, the reason of Rabbi Yochanan? Ika benayu grusha. The difference is for the divorcee that she sell the estate to collect the ketubah. The man de amar mishum china, the one who said, which is Ula, that he said that the reason that they're lenient for the widow that's selling without the court, it's because china, because desirability, grusha nami bayachem. A divorced woman also needs to have this, which is the desirability. So also a divorcee, she can sell in order to collect a ketubah without appearance in the court. Leman de'amar, according to Rabbi Yochanan, that said that the reason that they are more lenient with the widow, לפי שאין אדם רוצה שתתבזה אשתו בבית דין, because the person doesn't want his wife to be degraded at the front of the rabbinic court, גרושה לא אכפת לי. She's already divorced, she already went through that notion. She know that her ex didn't like her, right? So therefore you cannot compare grusha to this one, the divorcee, because you treated grusha, the divorcee, the same as other debt collector, that they have to go before the court in order to sell all the estates to collect the money. תנן, וגרושה לא תמכור אלא בבית דין. We learn in the Mishna that divorcee may sell only in court. בישלמה למאן דאמר, we understand clearly that the divorcee different than the widow, according to Rabbi Yochanan, who said that the widow from the betrothed, she doesn't need to sell at the front of the court, לפי שאין אדם רוצה שתתבזה אשתו בבית דין. So a person doesn't want to denigrate his wife at the front of the court. גרושה לא אכפת לי. But if he's divorcee, the ex doesn't care if she will be humiliated at the court, because at that moment he strongly disliked her. אלא למאן דאמר, but according to Ula that said that the reason she didn't need to sell the front of the court is משום חינה, because of the desirability, גרושה נמי bayachem, as we said earlier. המאני רבי שמעוני. So it's follow Rabbi Shimon that who hold in the Mishnah that also widow from the time of betrothal, she needs to sell at the front of the Bet Din, and therefore you don't challenge from the Mishnah on Ula. So the Gemara rejected, said, Rabbi Shimon natanu lereisha min ha'erusin lo timkor. We learned earlier that she should not sell from the time of the betrothal. So they said, Mao de tema almana min ha'erusinu de lo nafish chen dida, because the husband, meaning the one before, it wasn't a relation between them, so they don't have this strong attachment. Aval grusha de nafish chen dida. But divorcee, meaning that she married someone, it was a period of time, but it was a strong attachment between them. Eima tiba eichen. So maybe she needs this rabbinic decree of desirability, and therefore that's basically exempt her from appearance in the court. Moshe said, Hanamei tanina kol she'ein la mezonot la'atuyei mai. Anyone who does not receive sustenance may sell only in court. You want to add, Malav le'atuyei grusha, it's not to go by the idea of divorcee. So that she teaches that she cannot sell the estate without appearance in the court. So you see from this Mishnah that divorcee had to appear before the court, and doesn't follow Rabbi Shimon but only the first Tana. So the Gemara said, Lo la'atui megoreshet ve'ena megoreshet, which means you have a betrothed, and then it was a divorce, and it's not clear, it's a quandary if she is divorced or not, which means her status is not clear what type of divorce. For example, remember we talked the other day about the husband throwing in a public domain a get to his wife, and the question is if it's in that manner, if it's an effective, because we said in Bava Metzia page 10 that the 4 cubits of a person, that's his domain. So if you throw the get in his domain, not in her domain, it may be not considering an effective get. So therefore, if it's not clear if she divorcee or not, so therefore לרבי זרע דאמר רבי זרע כל מקום שאמרו מגורשת ואינה מגורשת בעל חייב מזונותיה. If she's in a situation that it's not clear if she's divorced, so the husband is still responsible for her support. תשמע, כשם שמוכרת שלא בדין, כך יורשיה שכתובתה מוכרים שלא בדין. The same way as the widow sell from the estate of her husband in order to collect the Ketubah without the court appearance, the same applies to her inheritors or to the heir of her Ketubah. They can sell estate to collect the Ketubah without the court session. Bishlama leman damar. That's go well by Rabbi Yochanan, that said that the reason of the first Tanakh that she doesn't need a bed in the fish and Adam Bosech the Bezdei Shtor Bedin Ke'eiche Dei Lo Nicha Ledit Bazi. Same way as he doesn't want to be degraded, she doesn't want to be. The same apply to her heir. They don't want to go to court. But the one who speak about desirability, what is this has to do with her heir? So Targemei Ula interpreted it כגון שירשתה ביתה או אחותה. When you have the heir who is her daughter or sister, so they too have to have the desirability. So that's because of that, that's the reason that you exempt the court. So as you see, the previous Mishnah, we learned that the widow allowed to sell by herself from the estate of the late husband in order to have a basic sustenance, and she doesn't need to go to the expert bedin for that. So in regards to selling estate to pay off her marriage contract, you have a disputation between Tanakama and Rabbi Shimon. Tanakama hold that even with that one, she doesn't need a bedin. Rabbi Shimon said that she doesn't sell the Ketubah only toward the avenue of the Beit Din. So Rabbi Shimon continued in his view, Machra Ketubata or Miktzata, if a widow sold from the estate of her husband in order to collect the Ketubah in the value of the entire Ketubah or part of the Ketubah, Mishkena Ketubata or Miktzata, or she put a lien, which means a lien in exchange for loan, the entire Ketubah or part, Natna Ketubta la'acher, or she gave the Ketubah as a gift to another person, or Miktzata, or part of that, לא תמכור את השאר אלא בבית דין. She have to sell the rest of that only by going toward the session of the Beit Din. והחכמים אומרים, the sages disputed it and said, מוכרת היא אפילו 4-5 פעמים. She allowed to sell the estate of the late husband in order to collect the Ketubah contract, even in the stages, 4-5 meaning 4-5, which means it's a small stages, each and every one, she sell as much as she like to. That's the way Meir explained, and Rambam explained, the idea is she doesn't need to sell in one time. The Maaser Okach explained that there is a reason for that, because basically it's the whole idea of how she managed the money. And sometimes she can have some type of change in the management and or switch different way of managing the money. So מוכרת למזונות שלא בבית דין. She sell meanwhile estate for her sustenance without consent of the court. Even she collects some of her ketubah, she doesn't lose the right for her sustenance until she completely receive the whole money of the ketubah. The idea is the Shulchan Aruch Even HaEzer 103 said that she had the option. She can go either sell it independently or to go by the Beit Din, but it's in her hand. Vechotevet. Now, when it's come to the writing, when she sell those estate in order to have sustenance without the court, it's a good advice to write in that promissory note or contract clearly limzonot macharti. This is a very good advice that when she make this sale, she write down, I sold this for my sustenance. I sold this estate for my sustenance. Why? That's a good advice. The rabbi is taking care of those poor widows, because the one who sees her selling all this estate will not think that she's selling everything in order to have sustenance, and he can bring her bad names that she's someone who resell and sell and resell, and that's create a bad reputation for her. So the idea is, so just said that it's a good advice that she will say in the contract specifically, very clearly, what type of estate she sold for the Ketubah and what type of estate she sold for the sustenance. וגרושה לא תמכור אלא בבית דין. The last rule is that divorcee, she have to go only when she needs to sell the estate of the late of the husband, she needs to sell it only toward the rabbinic court. Obviously, as we said, that's one of those ruling that she's already had no issue of going before the court, etc. Meaning, that's the understanding of the Mishnah. Matniti Nami. Who is the Tana Kama of the Mishnah? Rabbi Shimoni de Tanya. Machra Ketubata או משכנה כתובתה, עשתה כתובתה הפותיקי לאחר, אין לה מזונות. דברי רבי מאיר. So he said that if a widow sold her Ketubah or put a lien in her Ketubah, or she make it as a putiki, it's like we explained several times that she designed it for payment of something else. So, meaning a money for collection of debt from somebody else. אין לה מזונות דברי בני. רבי שמעון אומר, אף פי שלא מכרה ולא משכנה כתובתה, אלא מחציתה איבדה מזונותיה. Even she did in part, she already lose her sustenance, so she can only sell the rest of the marriage contract by going to court. So, according to Rabbi Shimon, the widow lost her sustenance, even she collects some of the Ketubah, and that's match what Tanakama said in the Mishnah. לממרד רבי שמעון סבר, דלא אמרינן מקצת כסף ככל הכסף. So, Rabbi Shimon hold that you don't say that women that still have the right to receive some of the money of the Ketubah, it's the same as someone who have the right to receive the whole money. ורבנן סברי אמרינן מקצת כסף ככל כסף. The sages hold, which is Rabbi Meir, that said that she had the right to receive some of Ketubah, is like the same as she had the right to receive the entire Ketubah. So basically, she's not losing the entire sustenance. Ha'ipcha shamina lahu. We see in different Braita the opposite, the Tanya. This is a Braita that dealing with high priest. The Torah said in Leviticus 21, Vehu isha bivtulea yikach, which means he needs to take a wife that never have relation. Prat lebogeret. That's excluding a bogeret. What does that mean? Bogeret is the one who reached the point of maturity. So Kohen Gadol cannot marry her. Why? Shekalu betulea. That her inner part is not the same as it used to, so therefore she's not considering as a total a virgin. דברי רבי מאיר, רבי אלעזר ורבי שמעון מכשירים בבוגרת. Good morning, doctor. רבי אלעזר and Rabbi Shimon allow Kohen Gadol to marry bogeret as long as she's betula. For them, it's enough. Some of simanei betulim doesn't need to be only that. Hatam bikrai pligei. So the Gemara said over there they disputed how to explain this pasuk. Rav Meir savar betula, afilu miktzat betulim. Rav Meir hold that when it's come to betula, so it can be part. Betulea ad ika kulhu betulim. And bivtulea, by the Torah adding the letter bet, bekedarka. Ein, shelo kedarka, lo. Rabbi Elazar ורבי שמעון סברי, בתולה שלמה משמע, בתוליה אפילו מקצת בתולים. 98, בבתוליה, when the Torah add the letter bet, שיהיו כל בתוליה קיימים, בין כדרכה, בין שכלא כדרכה. So here you see that the dispute is not relevant. Whether part of the money can be considered akin to all of the money, because the way it's written here, the end is regardless, darka shelo kedarka, as long as she have the betuli.
Boyachem leshuloim malachai yeshuloim malachai